Come on in, welcome to my home. Today we are going to talk about a fantastic book, The Princess of Potential. And I'm going to tell you right now that yes, there will be spoilers, but no, I'm not going to tell you the ending of the book because I really want you to read this book. It is so good. It is part of the House Witch series by Delm Hatch, and I'm going to say right now, I'm going to butcher probably 99.9% of these names. I'll do my best, but this book is so good, and it's a romantic fantasy, a humorous romantic fantasy. It is probably one of the better books that I've read this year, simply because you know that I like character-driven books. And now, instead of my normal taking food from the book, we're going to mix up a sleeping concoction, I guess, while we discuss this book. And one of the first things you're going to need, because the recipe is linked down below in the description, one of the first things that you're going to need is chamomile tea or some sort of sleepy time tea. You can decide what you want. I'm going to put this into a big glass jar because that way I don't have to worry when I shake it because I'm not going to use a blender. This is our tart cherry juice, pineapple juice, and I'll add 2 tablespoons of honey, approximately. Okay, so let's talk about this book. This book takes place many years after the third House Witch book. So it's mainly about the children of King Norman and Annesley and Annika and Finn. Their children and what happens with them. And it's really about the growing relationship between King Brendan and Princess Alina. Or Alina, I think it is. And what it is this story has a lot of growth. And you know that I love character stories where people actually grow and where they also actually work on how they grew. I don't want to have a Cinderella moment where it's just like, hey, look, I've changed because of some sort of magical whatever. Yeah, not so cool. Let me clean this up. If you're wondering what this is supposed to be for, it's supposed to help you sleep. Not that I need help to sleep, but I wanted to try this. Let's go into the other room. I do have my document of vague notes and our drink. Let's take a drink of this. It's not bad. It's actually quite good. If you like chamomile, it's not too sweet, it's not too tart. Yeah, I could definitely drink lots of that. Okay, so let's go with our characters. Our main character is Alina. She is our main character. She is the princess, and you probably remember her parents from the House Witch, Annesley and Norman. When she was born, there was a rough time with the queen having her, and so, you know, she was born. And this is years later, and they've actually killed off the queen. Like I said, spoilers. But she's been raised as almost not a spoiled princess, but a very protected princess. And that's become a theme through all of this. The twins that Annika and Finn had, and they are Kat and Tam, they've also been raised fairly sheltered. Well, very sheltered, simply because something traumatic has happened to Tam, and there's a story about Kat and a donkey, which you're going to have to read. Don't go there. Don't even. But like I said, this is a very humorous book, and it has much less death and destruction than most of the books I've been reading lately, and I enjoyed that. Then we have King Brendan, who you remember probably from the first series where Annika, yeah, I think that's right. She was the one who killed his father. And he knows this, but he can't like 100% prove this. But all of these characters are in a certain way. They have growth that needs to happen. And the nice part about this is it's a book where you see the characters actually grow. And you see these people where Brendan is definitely somebody who has had much less feeling and caring, and he comes from a country where open emotions and being kind is looked down upon. Whereas Elena lived in this land where love and being honest and caring was looked up upon. Everybody's come so that they can find the princess a person to marry. Because at this point, you're probably wondering where Prince Eric is. Prince Eric is missing. I won't say missing necessarily. I will say Prince Eric is gone. He has left simply because we don't 100% know. And like I said, I can't tell you because I want you to read this book. It is so, so good and so surprising. And the end actually comes from something that makes sense for once. It's not one of those things where the catalyst towards the end is just like, poof, I'm a catalyst. I suddenly came here. No, this catalyst is talked about in halfway through the book, but you don't realize it's going to happen. So you have these characters who Brendan and Lana do not seem like they are going to mix, because he's so rigid and staunch and she's so delicate. But is she? One of the things that this book does so well is to give you an outside appearance of people. This is what usually happens in royal courts, and they do talk about this. You learn an outside appearance of somebody, and then you find out what they inwardly are like. And those two things can be at odds with each other, or it can be at odds with each other what they want or what they need. And the people who love them the most sometimes are the very people who are holding them back. Is King Norman holding his daughter back from becoming her full potential? Possibly. And I mean, there's lots of things where King Norman has lost his wife, whom he loved immensely. His son is MIA for whatever reason, and that's actually not revealed in the book. So before you go into that whole one, it is not revealed in the book. And now he's potentially losing his daughter. And who wants to really lose their daughter? And also, it's possible that she has to become queen of the land of Draxaria? Like I said, I'll butcher these names. It's possible that she's going to have to become queen. So there's lots of problems there, and like part of the problems are, does she really want to become queen of this land? Does she want something else? Does Brendan really want to be king of a land of people who their whole thing is backstabbing and deceit? That would be very hard to do. Does he want something more? His brother has come with him and is also a potential mate for the princess. But what's interesting about that is the fact that where he comes from, most of the time the king will kill off their brothers or sisters or siblings so that there is not potential deceit in the fact that they could try to kill the king to gain power. He did not. In fact, he's done everything he can to protect his brother. That's interesting. Yeah, put a pin in that one. It'll come back later. Then you have other characters which you've seen in the first books, and this is where my first complaint comes in, is the fact that a lot of characters are dropped in to do a, hi, guest appearance, and it felt like a, hi, guest appearance, and which is okay, but it also sort of distracts from it. One of the things I did do, because I remember reading this from the first book, Kraken, who is Finn's familiar, had a whole chapter or two where he did things, and people didn't like that. People really, really did not like that at all. But Kraken is also probably the character who change the whole course of each story. In fact, he does change the whole course of each story. And that is addressed in this book. It's addressed that Norman doesn't like Kraken, Kraken doesn't like Norman. So you get to see interactions. You get to see interactions with people. And what I think is really interesting about this book is I can see the parallels between Norman and Brendan, Ansley, her mother, and Alina, and then Kat and her mother, Annika. And the fact that I think what you're seeing is it's sort of hinted that the love story between Norman and King Norman and Queen Ansley is sort of plays out the same way as the love story between Brendan and Alana. But will it last? I mean, will their love actually make it through, or will their differences divide them? And that's something to think about, because I've read a lot of stories where the love story is like so contrived that nobody really works for it. It's just a magical, hey, we're in love because we read the plot and we should be in love. This you don't get. This you actually have people who fall in love and then have to work for that love. And that I really liked. I really like the fact that as the characters change, they don't magically change. It's not a Cinderella moment where the fairy godmother bings them and suddenly they're a whole different person, things are wonderful. No, this is more like life where people actually have to work for their change. And that is so refreshing. In this, there are not silly things like dragons and, okay, the cat does talk to people, but we can forgive that. It is a world filled with magic, but the magic is not the most important thing in the story. It's not the most important thing in this book. The most important thing are the relationships between all of the people, including the royals, including the people from the past books, and what they do to cement these relationships and what they do to actually move forward. Moving forward is one of the biggest things that I found in this book that I absolutely just adored, because it is very much so you progress forward. However, your changes that you make are not necessarily linear. So even though you might want to change your personality, you might revert back to the way you were before. One step forward, two steps back. That happens, and it's okay, but it's not one of those where the two steps back make no sense. It's one of those things where in this book, the two steps back that each character takes makes absolutely and complete and total sense. This is one of those books where I read this, I started like on a Thursday, yeah, that's when the book came out, and I finished it on a Sunday morning. Now, have been told I'm a fast reader. It's about 400 and some pages. Now, let's talk about something that I hated. They have a character who's introduced halfway through the book who serves absolutely zero purpose in this book. Like, none. Even the minor characters that they have, like the maids, the handmaids, they serve some sort of purpose. This character, I'm sure this is going to come up in the next book, or the fact that there is actually a book series which is going to be about Kat called The Burning Witch. They're going to, I mean, he might come in, but his name is Lincoln, I think, and he is not, I mean, the book could have totally and completely been done without him. Like, I don't know, I just didn't understand this character. And that was one of my big beefs with this book, was to introduce this character who was supposed to have been around for lots and lots of years, even though there's a big jump. Like I said, when the last book ended, the princess had just been born and now she's about ready to get married. So there's a big jump in time. But it's a character that serves no purpose. I find him annoying, and in fact, by today's standards, he's in love with Kat, but Kat is not in love with him, but he's still sort of semi-pursuing her. That's sort of creepy. And he's been raised like her brother. Sort of creepy. But to watch characters and have characters move forward, have characters go from I want to change, I want to see change in my life, but I'm afraid. I don't know how to change this. And that's what all these people do. And they don't rely on the heavy use of magic to make this change happen. They rely on the heavy use of their own personalities, their own will. What's more important, my fear of change or my fear of losing the person who I might actually be in love with? And once again, one of the nice things about this love story is the fact that they don't instantly fall in love, because a lot of love stories, they instantly fall in love. This isn't a Hallmark video where suddenly, you know, hey, I've known you for all of 4 minutes, we're going to get married. The other thing that I will tell you, no, I won't tell you that. Can't tell you that without spoiling the end. The catalyst that drives everything forward. Because, like I said, a lot of this is the tension between what should happen in society and how these families interact, because you have the king and a princess and Viscount Ashwan, yeah. That's Finn from the first book, and his wife Annika. They're not royalty, but they've risen up in ranks. He's gone from the house kitchen, the cook basically, to now he is a Viscount. They do ignore his stepfather, who he was only a stepfather for a short time before his mother died. But they do sort of ignore him. He is in there. But I want to stress this, and I don't feel like I'm giving this book enough credit. It is an amazing page turner. These are characters who you're going to care about. These are characters who see life differently. You have a princess who's only seen life as a princess, where everything is taken care of for her, or a king who's only seen life as he became a very, very young king, and he had to worry about everybody in his kingdom trying to kill him off so that they could gain power. Everything in his kingdom was about getting power and being the person in charge. Who wants to live like that? You have a daughter who has been coddled by her parents and always gotten out of trouble because she does have some power, but we're not sure exactly what her power is, and we won't know until she finds a familiar, which she hasn't. Then she has a brother, that's Tam, who we don't know what happened to him. That also is not revealed. Something horrible happened to him, and he's afraid to be in open spaces. He's afraid to be in large groups. So we don't know about his power. It is set up so that there will be another book, because there will be another book. But it's set up in such a way that it makes sense. And the end of the story, you'll be happily surprised with how the book ends, simply because it makes sense. And I think we're not used to a love story where the end of it makes sense. The catalyst moves us to it without being overly dramatic and without it having no logical reason for it happening. This one does. This is a great book. The characters are wonderful. The thing which sort of will throw you off is the fact that these characters really haven't met each other. They've sort of met each other occasionally when they would go visit, but even though the king and queen were best friends with Annika, they didn't really stay in contact that much. Read the book. This one is 100% worth it if you like character-driven books, if you like books that have a love story that absolutely makes sense with people who aren't stupid. You'll like this. And like I said, the catalyst, I've never even given you even a mild hint, but the catalyst is actually mentioned in the first series, the first trilogy. Yeah, you'll like it. Well, let me know down in the comments what you think about the book if you read it. Let me know if there's another book that you think that I should read, and, reaching down, this is actually really good. I'm going to see if tonight if it actually makes me sleep better. We'll have to see. I hope you enjoyed this, and I want to take this time to thank these wonderful people who let me read books for a living, and they also get to find out how exactly this is going to work, because I will mention it in the weekly vlog that they get. They get a behind-the-scenes view of everything. You can become a channel member, or you can become part of the Patreon family and see what's going on and see how the weather has been affecting me. Long story, yeah. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope I get to see you again the next time you stop by.